Hope all of you can hear me. I am obviously wearing my Elvis glasses to let everyone know we're coming from Memphis, Tennessee. All right. But in all reality, Elvis has left the building. So in my real life, these are the glasses that I wear. I just grabbed those at the last minute thinking, well, that would be kind of fun. Okay. My name is Parrish Aiken, and I work at Southwest Tennessee Community College in Memphis, Tennessee. I really want to give a big shout out to our presentation, our special speaker, keynote speaker, Dr. Campbell. What wonderful information. And I loved the way we could interact with her through our phones and she could get answers from us. That was spectacular. I'd also like to thank the SLO Symposium team. I know it takes a large amount of effort and time to put something together of this scope, and really appreciate all their hard work and dedication. And they finally get to enjoy the fruits of their labor today. What we're going to talk about today is I ran a pilot project last semester using, for the first time, artificial intelligence in the classroom. And how it got started was almost on a fluke. I wasn't thinking about doing this project. I'm not a highly tech savvy individual. So when I was reading about, but I am a reader. So I was reading about AI and reading about it. And I was like, ooh, this might make English professors like myself extinct if now there are artificial intelligence that can write for us. What is going to become of learning to write? So we were having a faculty meeting. It was a training seminar at the end of the fall semester last year. And it was talking about AI. And I had the question of, well, how are we just not going to become dinosaurs? It's like a huge meteor is coming, and the meteor is AI, and it's falling to Earth, and we're just these dinosaurs who are scuttling around. And aren't we just going to become extinct? Well, of course, all the answers in the room were no, we're not going to become extinct. I think that's just because people don't like to think about being extinct. But it kind of set a thinking that maybe I could do something with this. And like I said, not being a tech expert, my resources were limited. I wasn't going to create a website. I wasn't going to do anything spectacular. And I also knew, and for all of the professors who enjoy their summers off, I also knew, one, I didn't want to do a deep dive into all of the AI apps. I didn't want to read scholarly article after scholarly article about artificial intelligence. I did not need to become an expert on artificial intelligence, because then if I knew next to zero, which I think this is a key element, okay? Not holding yourself back from exploring AI with your students just because you don't yet know anything about it. Well, I just smashed those two together. And from the first day said, we're going to be exploring if AI can write college papers. I don't know if it can. So we're going to be learning together. And I took that to the literal extreme of us learning together. So none of us had many questions at the beginning because we did not know what the questions were. The one thing I knew I needed to set up for sure was a syllabus. Like, in what order are we going to explore AI? What are the assignments that are going to be due and when? I knew I had to have something. I couldn't just go in wandering around. So I made a syllabus that's similar to a Composition 2 syllabus, which was the class, Composition 2. So they've had Comp 1, they know they need paragraphs and describing things with lead sentences and transitions. They might even know how to set up a quote and maybe what a works cited page is. So then you move into Comp 2 where you're doing research writing. You're doing many of the things you learned before, but now you've taken up a notch and you're using research. Was there a question? I think maybe someone just joined the group with their microphone on. Okay, so I set up the syllabus like a Comp 2 syllabus with many of the same readings, but now I introduced readings about AI. And I set up the first week of saying, look at all of these. It's an article that I'll show you. Look at all of these artificial intelligence websites that we could explore, just to get them oriented to what we were doing. Many of them walked in, since it was a pilot project, it was only one section of the class. They walked in not knowing that we were going to explore AI. So it was all new. So right from the beginning, they were excited. They were like, ooh, I've heard about this, but I don't know anything about it. The classroom was made up of all different age groups and types of people, from your 18-year-old that just came out of high school to a 40-year-old who's been out working in the real world. All different colors, shapes, and sizes of students. And it was a very diverse group. So the first thing that I want you to know about, if you choose to start kind of using AI in your classroom, you don't really have to know anything if you and your students are going to do it together. And that sets up an automatic discussion, because they're going to find something across the room and say, ooh, did you know this? And I'll say, no, let me look it up. And it's a back and forth of both learning at the same time. I loved, even though it is kind of scary to go in with just the loosest of concepts of what's going to happen, it became our bonding force. And I was very deliberate in telling them, I don't know what's going to happen. This could be great or it could fail miserably. If it fails, we just won't do it next semester. But if it goes great, you guys are going to be the ones that teach me what went well and what didn't. So they're becoming invested now. Oh, we're the first on campus to do this. Yes, you guys are going to help me build this research. And so we were all automatically on the same side of the coin, instead of being professor who knows everything to students who are learning everything. We turned to where we're both looking at this thing over here. And it gave a different sense of kind of a sense of belonging, a sense of teamwork. They were talking more with each other. So my goal today is to just share with you basically what the semester looked like and what they produced. I have to remember to kind of slow down sometimes. I will try to keep an eye on the time. And let me share my screen. Already seen this. Okay, let's go here. If someone could let me know if they can now see my screen. Okay, so you're seeing our study notes for week 1, okay? All right, you don't have to read anything because I'm just going to walk you through it. But I wanted them, usually Comp 2 starts with a summary. Can you look at material and then summarize it into a paragraph? So one of the first things I had them look at was what's out there. what is going on? Can I get kind of a big picture? And so there was an article and it named various websites. Okay. Now, just like I said, I did not necessarily want to do a deep dive of everything that's involved in AI. Plus, it's going to change every day. So even this article that I've been using for the last 2 semesters is going to be updated, right? Some of these things are going to fall off. New things are going to come in. But we shared this in class on the very first day, and I told them what artificial intelligence is in a general sense, and I broke them into groups. There was about 4 people in each group, and they were to choose one of these websites and go look at it. And once they were looking at it, they needed to make some notes, which would be turn into their summary notes. Okay, what does the website look like? What colors did it use? Who is its target audience? What did you see? Were there pay tiers? What is it doing? What is the website there to do? What does it do? So this got them talking, and it got them learning each other's names. I just let them be in a group that was the people surrounding closest to them. For the rest of the semester, now they know those people. They've talked with those people. And then at the end of, let's say, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, they were to describe what they saw. What website did they look at? What did they see? What does it do? And so it was giving them a picture of what was going on. Okay, next, they were to find someone who has some experience with AI. Sometimes, I remember one specifically, they interviewed a person who did not know anything about AI, but still got a decent paper because they were just discussing, well, what do you think? What do you think it is? What do you think is going to happen? But the actual goal was to find someone who works in some capacity, even if it's a student, who has come across AI or who is now using AI. And asking, is your boss asking you to use AI? What does the AI do? Is that thing that it does something you used to do? Now, what do you do? Right? And just asking, do you have any experience with this? And the responses that we got, I kind of highlighted something here. Everything from, if you think of, let's say a woman who runs a large landscaping business. I bet you at home when she's running the numbers, she's using AI of some sort. She could stick to her old Excel sheet if she wanted to, but she needs to know where people are, when, what jobs were completed, what money came in and what went out, right? So the spectrum is broad. I heard a student 2 days ago say that she works she works with filling, I think she's in a doctor's office. And she said that instead of having the pharmacist, she's a pharmacy tech, instead of having the pharmacist, like in the old days, like mix up the creams and like kind of make certain medicines, she said now there is a machine that makes the medicines due to AI and the information that we put in. So asking people to go interview people, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if many people would come back and say, I couldn't find anybody. It turned out that everybody found someone. So this specific person was accounts receivable, and they are integrating other systems. And this is the question and answer format. I also allowed a narrative format, whichever way they wanted to set up their interview. So then the student now knows, oh, this is really going on in the real world. I didn't know it on my particular job, but now I know that AI is being used in multiple jobs. So we discussed what jobs had come up, and it gets them out. It's totally different. You are, if you're writing in the narrative, especially form of interview, you are summarizing again. And this is their own writing. It's not writing generated by AI. So I was getting a feel for their actual writing skills. Okay, now let's do this during class. Can AI brainstorm? Though there was a little hiccup in the very beginning of the class when I had the class all at once go to ChatGPT and make a free account. The website seemed to not like that many people at once from the same location logging in. So for some students, there was a lag time. So what I learned from that was when I send out my welcome email the week before school starts, I'll tell them what we're going to be doing and go ahead and set up your own free account. So to spread that log up over some weeks so that when people log in the classroom, they already have an account set up. All right. I also did that the first time with the students. I did not, when I'm telling you I knew nothing, I've taught Comp 2 for about 15 years. And I needed a change. I wanted to do something different. And I thought, if they're logging in for the first time, I should be logging in for the first time. If we experience problems, we experience it together. Some people that had some lag time and they couldn't log in, I said, look at the person next to you. They're logged in. Ask them, get them to ask the question that you need. No problem. You can figure out almost anything. Or just sit and watch what they're doing. And later at home, when you log in, do what they're doing, right? Okay. So of all the concepts that we did, they first need to know what the concept is. So what is brainstorming? You still have to do your little lecture on brainstorming or show them videos of brainstorming or however you like to do it. Now the question is, can ChatGPT brainstorm? So first they need to know what it is before they can ask the AI to do it. Okay, so that's the teaching part. And then we go explore if chat can do it. Well, I'll tell you about brainstorming. So the question, the way the assignment was set up was brainstorm in ChatGPT, have ChatGPT brainstorm, and you probably want to use the word brainstorm in your prompt. Can it come up with multiple ideas on a subject? Do that 3 times and then and then you brainstorm. So, okay, let me reverse that. You brainstorm on a topic, then have ChatGPT brainstorm on the same topic, and then comment about what happened. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. You brainstorm, chat brainstorms, you comment on what it did versus you. So this person, this is all ChatGPT, brainstorm 10 ideas for a history paper before the 1600s. Nice and specific. ChatGPT gave her all kinds of ideas. These were her ideas. You can see just from the wording, more simplistic. I took this element out of the assignment. So not everyone did this because I started to think, I doubted myself. Don't doubt yourself. I started to think, well, if I set them brainstorming, they might brainstorm for the rest of the night. They could keep coming up ideas for the rest of the night. I shouldn't have taken it out because look at her finding. The findings of the AI surprised me because they're not only interesting, but well thought out. My ideas are just general thoughts I think will be nice to talk about, but Chat did a great job actually being able to write something history related, which one would think would be a great problem for it. So now we have the element of surprise, things I did not know Chat could do, right? And my greatest memory that's still with me, warming my heart, was one student who the first night we were brainstorming, we're in the class together. So basically kind of like flipped classroom. Instead of I'm going to tell you what to do and then you go home and do it, we're doing it in class together so we can talk. So she's at her desk. she's getting it to brainstorm something, and she spins around in her chair and she says, "It's doing it." And the look on her face was like sunshine, beams, rays coming out of her face. And I was just like, that just made my entire semester, because I haven't seen that type of excitement. If you can join me in this, in the classroom, in so long, that it was a joy to behold. Okay, so idea number 2. So I had them do it 3 times. She asked ChatGPT, she compares it to her, she makes a comment. I love how Chat gave me things I personally don't know much about, so I can learn and research something. The influences of these artists are just as important as any other, and I'm glad the answers were so diverse. All of a sudden, we're learning something, right? So she's critically looking at what is given to her and analyzing it. All right, so that was early in the semester. And then I tried it myself. I was doing some of my own brainstorming. Okay, writing prompts. Of course, the prompts are going to be important because the computer cannot give you anything that you did not put in. So I wanted them to start thinking about specific and succinct wording. You can't, I mean, you could just mess around and see what comes out. But when you're looking for something specific, which is what we were going to be doing, they needed to ask something specific. So we practiced with prompts. And this asked, what did you get out of it? Another element that I used in this course when we're talking about allowing students to bring their full self to the classroom, allowing students to express their own life experiences and interests. I kept that all along. They got to investigate or get Chat to write about whatever they were interested in. So this student was working with people with Alzheimer's. So they wanted to know more about Alzheimer's. So that's what the prompt, that was the prompt. What I asked, here's what he put in. The result, here's what he got. And then his comment. So I'm setting up, answer these questions. What your prompt produced, did it produce the desired results? Why or why not? So I'm asking them to think about, did that wording do what I needed it to do? Why or why not? So we're already critically thinking about wording and how to get what we want. Okay. How is AI going to affect TV? That was his prompt. Did it produce? Yes. Chat results covered most of the questions I had in my mind. It told me what AI is doing with TV now, what it's able to do, what it will do in the future. So again, I had them do this 3 times. Analyze the output. Okay. Let's see what the next, outline. Here's another thing that Chat can do for you. If you find that students are having a tough time organizing their ideas, maybe they could put their ideas into Chat. Okay. I asked Chat to give me an outline comparing and contrasting winter and summer. We were going to do a compare and contrast paper, even though that's a Comp 1 paper usually, because we had a little extra time in the way I had the semester set up. So I said, if you're going to ask about outlines, you might set up your outline as compare and contrast, since that's going to be our first paper. Yes, here was an outline. Here's an outline about 2 other things they were comparing it. Look how much. So they give you numbers. They organize the ideas for you. This was great because a lot of students complain about having a hard time generating ideas. Chat can do that for you. Having a hard time organizing the ideas. Chat was really good at that. So this is what we've learned so far at this point in the semester. Okay, now let's ask Chad if it can write a compare and contrast paper. First, you have to have the compare and contrast lecture so they know what the boundaries are. Are you going to set it up? I told them to set up their paper in a specific way. It's like a point by point comparison, not, all about A and then all about B. I wanted you to compare and contrast point by point. All right, put a due date on it. So here is some actual student critique. All right. So they asked, comparing contrast, sleep habits of toddlers, teenagers, and adults. Woo, there was 3 groups in there. Okay, so we talked about MLA style heading. Chat could never figure out the MLA style heading. One, because it doesn't know your name and it doesn't know what section you're in. It might not even know the date, right? Maybe it does, I don't know. It could not do the MLA style heading. They needed that. But look, okay, so the student whatever chat produces, they begin to analyze. So here's the key step. I was telling them, you pretend like you are the professor. You are the professor, and a student has handed this paper to you for their compare and contrast paper. You grade it. They loved that. They loved the feeling of being in charge of the grading. And it also did that same thing again. I'm not grading you and critiquing you. We are critiquing chat. So it took the entire power dynamics and flipped it to where all of us were on the same side looking at chat going, I don't know if you did this right. We got to look at it, okay, and grade it. Now, this led to, because I'm processing this with my students as we're doing it. I was like, okay, now that we have started to get, I'm in the red here, the student is in black, her writing. What we are starting to need is some proofreading guidelines. We need some questions to ask. What should we be asking when ChatGPT is giving us this information? So that led to, I said, what are some things we need to think about? Now, this is the first iteration, right? Because everything is changing so quickly, these questions may change. This is what we came up with the first round, okay? So I had them look at these proofreading questions and compare it to what chat gave them. Now you have, this is kind of like a grading rubric. It's a grading rubric for students, okay? Did the paper do these things? How many prompts did you use? So I wanted to kind of gauge how quickly they were getting the prompt thing. I think they got it pretty quickly. Was it able to produce an MLA style format? No, the answer was usually no. But these are the questions. Evaluate the intro and thesis. Highlight any problems or weaknesses. And you may need to fill in missing information. That was one of the key things. If it's missing something, what would you say? What would you fill in? Okay, so they're looking for the gaps. Now it's kind of like a mystery, right? Ooh, let me see if it, compared to my question and answer sheet, let me see what it's doing. Highlight any quotes. Investigate the quote for accuracy. It was funny because at the beginning, someone said, they said this quote was from Jane Doe. So obviously they knew that was not a real quote. So then they would have to, that brings in a research element. Where was this quote first seen? Was it a magazine, newspaper? Was it a YouTube video? Where you go find the quote. So that then they're going into Google, they're finding a second source of research, putting in the quote, Where has anyone seen this quote? No, no one's ever seen this quote. That's not a real quote. So now they're doing the research. Okay. Was AI able to create a works cited entry? I think the answer was always no. Your overall critique and grade. So they graded the chat material. Then I looked at how they graded. So that was kind of the level. If they followed the check sheet, the top 8 questions, then pretty much they got 100. Okay, because that's kind of a lot. And as you could see, it took a lot of writing. This was only her first attempt. You should see the next one. So now we have a proofreading key. All right, which I think is you need if you're going to replicate this. And then I asked ChatGPT, how do you proofread chat generated materials? It gave me some more ideas. So I just tacked them on the end, which had a lot of ideas, just to see, just to look around. What did chat say was needed to proofread itself? All right, now we get into our formal, normal Comp 2 papers. First is analysis. Okay, you give your analysis lecture, you show your video, you give your analysis notes. Here's what analysis is. Here's what it calls for. I think I asked for a couple of quotes. I can't remember. Now, the 100 is me, but this was the student's grade of the chat paper. Okay, and here is symbolism in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. We're looking at symbolism in a work of literature. That's an analysis question. Okay, she found there are still these odd, I guess they're not odd little headings, but they're not lead sentences. And not in my class, we don't set up our papers with these little headings. We make this a lead sentence, right? So she's looking, she's highlighting this analysis delves into, she's looking at things, and then at the end, okay, she's seeing where things should be all in one paragraph. Here we go with the proofreading comments. All right. So she does the work inside the paper, but at the bottom, she uses that check sheet once again and writes out longhand, here's what I found. Okay. She only had to use one prompt. The introduction provides a clear overview and its significance, strong start. However, the students were finding, when they looked close enough, there is room for improvement in terms of providing a more engaging hook to capture the reader's attention. How often do you get to hear a student say that? The thesis statement is clear and concise, blah, blah, blah. So look, go look at my quotes that I highlighted. They get to be the professor. And so they're asking critical questions like, where did this fall short? What more does it need? And one of the students, when she noticed the person next to her got a 100 because she delved into these proofreading questions, but she did not get a 100 because she did not go deep enough. She just kind of gave ChatGPT a pass, kind of like, yeah, it was pretty good. I was like, no, that's not what we're doing. It's not what we're doing. So when she started looking around, because you have all this writing on physical paper, that is mostly how it was in that class, because we worked a lot in class. She was looking and she said out loud, which I loved. She said, I'm not going deep enough. I'm not thinking deeply enough on this. So when she started seeing what her classmates were producing, she said, I'm going to have to think more on this. Now, when's the last time you heard a student say that? So I was getting such great responses. Okay. She said a lot of points were general and not specific enough. And I said, I too am seeing through student papers that this is happening. The next was explanatory synthesis. I said, now let's start to incorporate some of our own writing. You've been letting chat do all the writing so far. When mentioning what is missing or what is weak, and there's a spelling error there, or what is weak in AI, what would you add? Write it out in complete sentences. Okay, so now they're having to, I said, you could write on the back of the sheet. You could double or triple space the text and write it in. Where would it go? What would make your wording smooth when you're blending these two things? So if you can tell me where it's weak, how is it weak? And what would you add to make it stronger? So we're kind of stair-stepping their way into doing more writing, but the entire time they're using their critical thinking skills. Where does this fall short? Would this person be passing my class? Right? All right. AI still can't create a heading. Okay, we see that. Technological forces shaping our world, a synthesis of education, renewable energy, and artificial intelligence. Again, they're catering to their own interests. They're looking for things that they actually have excitement about. And here goes some writing, right? I wouldn't use an abbreviation. I would use a different word here. We need to indent. It apparently can't indent at the beginning of paragraphs. It would rather do these little headings. She wants to change some wording. The wording can become quite repetitive. That's what one of the students kept pointing out. It's saying the same thing over again using different words, but still being vague. So students caught on to that right away. So this is an explanatory synthesis. You're synthesizing various information, putting it all in one paper. Works cited was not generated. Here she goes with her proofreading comments. Okay, she was, as you can tell, this student was very, one, you can tell, you may have been able to tell from the handwriting, I've used the same student's paper over and over again because they were just so enthusiastic about the minute details that they happen to make make most of this presentation because they had such great insights into what they were analyzing. Could not do MLA format. She discussed the intro and conclusion, highlight any weaknesses. She did that in the paper. She did that, in those places. Are points backed up by relevant example? The essay provides relevant examples to support each point made. For instance, so they're looking back at the paper. They are taking another look at what is this recursive? It goes back and forth. They're reiterating what they first thought. Go back and check it again. Here's how I can describe it to the professor. So we're coming up to some final. Now, this is someone who did this electronically. Not everybody is going to write on the page. And this is also a student who, the first time he turned in the paper, it was to, it didn't use the proofreading sheet. It was too shallow. And I might have even used that word to get the student to realize, no, you got to go into the paper and look and analyze. Did it do what we asked it to do? Is it an analysis? How do you know? Is it a synthesis? How do you know? Ask questions. Once he got a bad grade on the first paper, he broke out with this type of commentary that I loved. He really got into it. And these are my marks when I go in and grade him. So he went a lot deeper the second paper than the first, which you want to see progress, right? So that's just an electronic version. I don't know what my students will come up with this semester, but he also did, the long form of answering those proofreading questions. So I really let him know after that first paper, and he turned this in the second time, I said, you've got it. Now you've got it. You know exactly what's going on. So that builds his confidence. Okay. Argument is usually the final paper, but this time, okay, this is our final, well, penultimate paper. Produce a spotless argumentative essay. Remember, we've been writing upon the paper, so it kind of looks crazy. We're putting our stuff in with that stuff, and it's like a multimedia paper. Let's make one look pristine, like we're trying to actually write an argument paper with ChatGPT, but now we're going to work inside the text. We're not going to highlight the text. We're not going to actually in this way, she did highlight it. I'll tell you why. But I wanted them to produce something that looked like a real college paper, and it was an argument paper. However many quotes, 2 quotes, works cited page. Okay, that was the assignment. Make it look real, I would tell them. You're using ChatGPT, but make it look real, to see if they could incorporate whatever needed to be done in full sentences that flowed, that had proper grammar and punctuation. Okay, so I did say, and this is what this student did, I said, I'd be interested if you highlighted what you added. So we have the chat paper, and she's the only one that did this highlighting, I think, and this is the reason I chose it. But what did you add to the paper to make it flow smoothly, to make it look good, to use that diverse word choice, to use a quote that is real in the real world? You can see that she did a lot of work to make this chat generated paper into a real paper. So, and she was also very meticulous. This was a different student. So I think I've highlighted about 4 different students. She was the one with the great brainstorming when she was comparing it to hers. So she's very meticulous in making, okay, so she needed a transition word here. She needed details. She wanted apparently a whole additional paragraph. So she added it because if she was going to get graded on an argument paper, she felt like she needed this. All right. So this is quite a paper. I mean, obviously quite a paper. She needed hanging indents, but we got a works cited page here. So that was the next to the last. So we're about to wrap up, but here's where we look back. Okay. One of the things that I feel very strongly about is if colleges are going to try to hold back AI, or they're going to try to limit AI uses, then what are students going to do when they get out in the real world and a variety of jobs need for them to be AI informed and knowledgeable in emerging technologies? We can see it if we go anywhere. If you go on LinkedIn and you look at a couple of jobs, you need to know something about AI. I don't want my students to go out in the world and not know what it is and not know its limitations. So the last paper was a reflection. It reflects back on what you learned. And we did this in class together as well. When we look back, it's a report, I called it, reflects on what you did and what you learned. You're not using AI because they are using examples of, all the papers they turned in, right? So they have built their research, and now they are asking, what did the research reveal? Okay, there'll be a minimum 4 paragraphs, intro, conclusion, 2 points you want to discuss. Were there 2 things that emerged? Even if those 2 things were, here's what chat did well, here's what chat did poorly. You have 2 body paragraphs, whatever they wanted to talk about. One student talked about her not being critical enough of the text, and that how did she get more critical and analytical in her thinking? So that was her paragraph. So we did this in class. If we're going to look at what we've done this past semester, what kind of, I said, I have a few ideas. Let me just get us started. But then they contributed to this. Things that you could put in your intro, right? This could be in the paper. Did you do an especially interesting interview? You know, did that part capture your attention? What are some advantages? What did it do well? Have you had AI experiences in other classes? Maybe even getting in trouble or getting a speech from the professor about not using AI in this class, which I understand it's still uneven ground. We don't know what we're doing. Okay, we don't know yet what's going on. What did you find it did poorly? These were just ideas to set them up of what they could write about. Okay, so it was good to pause at the end. Oh my gosh, we're almost out of time. It is good to pause at the end to ask, what did you learn? It was mostly weaknesses and the strong suits of ChatGPT, most of them, but some took their own route. Here's one of those final papers, just written like a regular paper. Yes, they had to write, but they were using all their own research. Okay, so just to wrap up, I looked at all those final papers and asked, what are some of the overriding things that we learned? I put in red the things that Chat did poorly, and in black the things that ChatGPT did well. So we talked about prompting. Look at the MLA formatting. So the student still has to learn the heading, indenting paragraphs, works cited pages, how to set up quotes. ChatGPT was not very good at formatting an MLA style paper. The information that we gained was often vague, based in the past, because unless you get the extension, Chat kind of ends 2 years ago. So I think it's getting better, but there's an extension for that, I think. There was quantity over quality. This is them analyzing what actually happened. It just seemed to me that the students were able to raise their game through some sort of magic that happened when we were all looking at the same things and grading those things. They became more critical. They became more demanding. They became more creative about the writing. It's like, this is boring. And one student said, it does not have any soul. It can't, if you're talking about the arts, music, a play, an opera, a great novel, it doesn't have the heart to really give you those insights like a human would. And a lot of them said, make sure to use your own brain, because that's what you're in college for. And they were critical of ChatGPT and what it could do, and making sure that it was up to snuff on what they thought it should be doing. But they also, reiterated, if you're in college, you need to be using your own brain. But I think that we have shown that they were using their brain a lot, and it was so much fun. I'm not exactly sure how to get my face back on the screen, but I think that you can see me over here. Also, let's see, not stop my video. I don't think that matters much. I don't know if we have time for questions. I think I just had 50 minutes. But if you would like to email me, I'm Takin, Takin, at southwest.tn.edu. So if you would like to email me or ask me any questions, I'm sure maybe you can find a bio at the symposium. I don't want to cut too much into your break in between sessions. I so much appreciate you being here. And oh, I can stop share right there. Oh, there I am. I so appreciate you being here and taking the time. I hope this was helpful, and I can share materials with you. For anyone who wants to stay, are there any questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.